$2. And I bought enough materials to make 200 hamburgers. So now 2 times 200 is 400. So I can sell $400 worth of product, except there's only $100 in money in circulation and there's nobody there to buy it. So now, in order to buy it, somebody comes in and he says, oh, okay, I want a hamburger, I'll buy it. But first he has to go to the bank and he has to borrow some money. And he may actually even come in and borrow it, buy the hamburger on a check with his credit card, which is something else but saying he's borrowing some more money. And so he borrows $2 and buys my hamburger. I get the hamburger for $2. That goes into my checking account. He now has these $2 of a loan that he got the loan. So now the bank has another asset for $2. He has a loan for $2. Now his interest kicks in, so he's going to owe $2 plus 10%, $12, right? Okay, so now this continues on, but as this whole debt grows, the total interest grows. And now my interest bill has come up to where we'll just say that I have to charge 10 cents more just to cover my interest. Well, pretty quick, I got to have a $2.20 hamburger. So I got to have a $2.10 hamburger. So you see, all this again, because of this interest, starts raising this price. Well, now as more and more people get into debt, as the prices rise, then it's harder and harder for anybody else to do more without borrowing more and more. Well, now as the government gets into debt, and sometimes it can, in fact, it might even borrow some of the money to put in, but the debt's still there. It's just a matter of whether they borrowed it or an individual borrowed it. Well, now as the interest kicks in, and the taxes kicks in, now we'll say the taxes is 10 cents. So now if my taxes go up 10 cents, now I got to charge $2.20 for that hamburger that originally I only had to have $2 for to break even because of my increase in taxes and interest. And that's where true price inflation comes from. And the longer this goes, the worse it gets. And of course, as this price inflation goes up, then everything the banker buys, everything the government buys, everything business buys, everything individuals buy keeps going up in price because of the additional interest and taxes, because all money flows into circulation as an interest-bearing debt. So pretty quick, we get deeper and deeper in debt, and we get back to the same process, because if I ever sell enough hamburgers to pay off my loan, then that money gets extinguished and goes out of circulation, and somebody's still holding the debt that I've captured 10% that went to the banker. And the only way he can get it is for somebody to get deeper and deeper in debt. And the principal gets extinguished, but the interest does not. So the interest keeps growing in the system and keep compounding and compounding until finally we get to where we are today. That's where we have a total worth of our country is about $38 trillion. Our debts are over $53 trillion, and our money supply is $7.7 trillion. Until we keep on going, until this gets so bad, like it has now, and we'll show you a chart, where in 1990, the family income average for a family of 4 was $40,000 or so. And as this keeps going over the years, and it takes, several hundred years or so for this to all come into play, but we are now at the point where it's came to the head. Because after all this borrowing and interest added and taxes added, it ends up that we have the total worth of our nation is right around $38 trillion. And this came from a speech that David Walker, former Comptroller General of the United States, gave here in Minneapolis. And he gave it around the country to other places too. And then the next one, the next column shows the total debt. Now that's the federal government debt, that's the state government's debt, that's the business debt, and the personal debt is $53 trillion. And the unfunded obligation on this chart, it shows it's 54, but understand now it's up to about 64. But it grows constantly, this grows constantly. But according to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York City in April of 2008, the total money supply was still only 7.7. Now, do you really believe we can borrow our way out of this mess? I don't think so. And of course, as this goes on and the interest keeps growing, there'll be a point in time when this will happen. And it's clearly, I've sent this chart down to the Federal Reserve Bank in Minneapolis, and they confirmed the figures that seemed accurate to them. And in 1990, the average family of four in America's income was about $40,000 a year. Their average interest load, now this is just the total interest load, because see, most people only think about interest being something they have to pay on their personal loans, and that's not true. Because all businesses and the federal government, they push that interest down to the consumer by either raising the price in businesses or raising the taxes from a government level, whether it's state, federal, or county. So then all this interest load also becomes the responsibility of the individuals. So then in 2005, the total income, and this was according to the Department of Commerce, was $43,500. But now the total interest load for the family of four has increased to $30,854 for the family of four. By 2016, the average family of four's income will be around $46,500. And the way people are losing their jobs and things like that, it may not even, and putting caps on wages and stuff, it might not even be that high. But the debt is constantly growing, because we saw that how much the Obama added to the debt in just one day by the one stroke of the pen. But the interest load, if just going from the figures, the interest load will be $47,955 for an average family of four. That means the total interest load at 6% will be over $1 billion greater than the total consumer income. Now, you really believe you can borrow your way out of this mess? There's no other way to get out of this except put money into circulation that represents the production of the people without debt and without interest. And if we don't do that, this system will collapse. Because I have never known anybody in my entire life that when they couldn't pay their interest, they got to keep their toys, or their house, or their car, or anything else. Because remember, these promissory notes that we signed to get these loans are all court enforceable. And they're all based, even the government debts, are based in the full faith and credit of the United States, which means a mortgage on all the property in the United States. So theoretically, and probably, factually, they could literally come take all the property in America for payment of this debt. And I guarantee you that can't be constitutional. And that's why Jefferson said, if the American people ever allow the banks to completely control the issuance of money, in time they will wake up homeless in the country their fathers founded. And this is where we are right now in America, and this is how critical they are. Now, you can turn, David Walker is on a tour doing all this, explaining almost the same thing now, but he never touches on the fact that the interest and the taxes are driving this. He just simply says it's the interest. Now, we either got to tax more or spend less, but see, doing either one won't solve the problem. Because the problem is money is created as interest-bearing loans. There is no money in the system till somebody borrows it and pays interest on it, which is an impossible thing to happen when no money is created when the loan is issued. Only the principal is put into circulation when you borrow, never the principal plus the interest. But when it comes time to pay the note, the principal plus the interest must be paid, or you are forced into foreclosure. That's why I put together the concept of the Minnesota Transportation Act, where we can actually, with a simple switch of how money is put on the books of the banks, create money as a payment based on the production of the people with no debt or no interest, which will allow then the money to come into circulation to pay the loans without having to have somebody go into foreclosure.